special guest and my first guest for my first podcast is here, Adam Neutzsky-Wulff. I am very honored to have you as my first guest.
Thank you to be. I'm very pleased to be a guest. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. You are in Nairobi right now, so this is the first surprise. We're connecting from Oslo. I'm in Oslo right now to Nairobi.
Oh wow! Yeah, I am in Nairobi. Yes, this has become my first home actually. So yes.
And you are from originally Denmark.
Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark. Yes.
From Copenhagen. Okay.
Absolutely.
And you are. Correct me if I miss anything. You are a director, a filmmaker. You are also a writer. Is that true? Do you write yourself, or?
I do write I wrote my first American movie, but I'm mainly, producing, directing now, I'd say, right? That's what I spent the most of my time doing. But I am in the writing room because I am also the showrunner of the current show I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I'm developing the script with the writers, right? But my primary focus now is producing, directing, and then I'm also a business owner because the company that produces the show here in Nairobi is my own company, basically.
Yes, yes. So, yeah. And I've just seen the trailer of your recent Crime and Justice, the series. It's so super good, super exciting to watch. You're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
But let's jump a bit back in time, like where it all started. I just wanted to know, because people might watch this who are just starting off in their career. And what was your first job related to film and to the industry? Do you remember?
I do remember. It was not very glamorous. It was a documentary about frogs in Denmark. So I would be standing, in the middle of the night with what's called a sun gun, which is like a gun-shaped light that you turn on, so you can shoot frogs. They only come out of light, right? And then every time I turned it on, I would be like an assistant holding the lamp. There would be like a million flies attacking me. So it was not glamorous at all. But you're making film and you're getting paid, and you feel like you're in heaven because you're doing what you love to do. But it was not glamorous, no. I think prior to that was my first professional job, right? Prior to that, I did a lot of short films where I used my entire family as actors, and that kind of gave me some traction, into more professional stuff later on, right? So coming from writing, definitely because my father is a writer, a novelist who wrote over 40 novels. So that was natural to kind of start as a storyteller in that way. And then one short film led to the next, and then I got a grant from the Danish Film Institute workshop, which was a great system. They don't really have that anymore in the same way, but it was essentially you're given 20 cans of film, some camera equipment, and then you have to figure the rest out yourself. But the cool thing about the workshop, the workshop had so many people, around it, so you can always find an editor or cinematographer or someone that you could build your own crew with, right?
Yeah.
So I did a movie called Images of Life that went to a lot of festivals, and then that took the next short film, and then from short film, I went into music video back in the days when the budgets were really fun. I did almost 100 music videos that were rotated on MTV and Viva.
Wow.
So, and then videos, that led to TV shows, and then movies, and then back to TV shows. So that's kind of the short version, right? So
yeah. Wow, you've done a lot of things. You've been producing, working. So I have to ask you, did you never sit down and doubt it? Because now when you tell it to me in the short version, it sounds like you've just been doing all the time. So have you ever had moments where you've been sitting and being
I'm also, because I'm mentoring a couple of people in Nairobi as well, right? Young filmmakers. And when they ask me that question, I always tell them, if you have a plan B, then the plan B will happen. So you can have a plan B. If you want to do this, it's all in, it's all or nothing, it's like you want to do this until the heavens fall. If you don't have that resilience, it's not going to happen. So I never had a plan B. I always wanted to make movies and make this happen. And of course, I also think you have more luck when you work hard. I think luck is not something that lands for everyone, but if you work really hard, you also get more luck. I definitely believe that. And all the times in my life, there are moments of doubt, but it's not something that would ever make me change the passion or the route of my life, right? So I think probably since I was 19 years old and I won my first award for a short film I did, and up until now, I didn't really doubt this is what I wanted to do. Also because in many ways first love for me. You know, my father sat me down in front of a big screen in my home when I was 4 years old and showed me all the classics, you know, on a big screen. He bought these Super 8mm films, right? So long before Netflix, long before anything was on demand, long before even a VHS player, you had these massacred 20-minute versions of the big classics that we would watch, right?
Yeah.
And I sometimes think when I watch, for example, the 10 Commandments or Ben-Hur or Superman, I only saw 20 minutes, and that's maybe why I went on to do music videos, because music videos is also a very contained way of telling a story. You have 4 minutes, and then, you know, you have a song.
Yeah.
And I think because only later in my life, I then of course revisited the same classics in their full length, right? But I think the fascination of the medium happened very early, and I think if more people just sat down and thought, what was first love for me, that and they let that inform what they do with their lives, then I think there would be more happy people in terms of what they choose for their life work-wise, right? That's what I'm telling my son. He's 11. He loves basketball. I mean, the chances of being an NBA player are probably pretty slim. So I'm not telling him to have a plan B now, but I'm telling him just don't ever spend time on becoming good at something you hate to do.
Yeah.
I mean, work your ass off on something you're good at and something you love to do, right? You may have a knack for accounting, but it doesn't mean you should follow that if you hate it. I think a lot of people, they choose jobs because, hey, I know how to do this, but they never ask themselves, but do I love to do it? And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong and end up choosing lives for themselves that wasn't what they wanted, basically, right? And I always knew that this is my big passion, so I was never in doubt that this was what I had to do, you know?
Definitely. And I totally feel you. Like, I'm an actress and I totally love what I do. And it's like the biggest passion. And then everything else becomes like, you know, just
secondary.
leaves, just like, it's okay, I want to play, I want to like create stories. So tell me about the most exciting job that you ever did. And it can be like in a surprising or shocking way or in a touching way.
Yeah, I think the most the most exciting job I had was definitely a movie I did in New York a couple of years ago called All the Little Things We Kill. It started out basically, as an idea that my screenwriting partner thought was more like a short film, and I was like, no, just hear me out. This is the idea, and I pitched it for him while living in America. But I lived in the States for 4 years, and I was so tired of all the school shootings, and I felt something had to be done about that, you know? So I came up with a story that was like a big setup. I won't ruin it for you. There's a big twist at the end, but essentially it's about a university college professor that takes all her students hostage, you know, while carrying a gun to prove a point about how dangerous guns are. And it's a vivid anti-gun movie with a huge twist at the end you don't see coming. And it was with Elisabeth Marvel in the lead, and the funny thing about her was I'm a big fan of her. She was in Homeland and was in House of Cards as well.
Yeah,
brilliant actress. Married to Bill Camp, also was a great actor, you know. And I sent the script, and she was like, I don't know if I can do this because, you know, I have school fees to pay, and it's a low budget movie, and you know. And then I wrote a long email saying, you have to do this movie because I'm a father, you're a mother, and we can't leave this world to kind of, you know, we had to do something to change people's opinions about guns, blah, blah, blah. And she came back saying, okay, I'll do it. And when she said yes to do it, then she became like kind of the can opener of the project. I always use the kind of the simple can opener because when she came on, then Daniel Brooks from Orange is the New Black said, I'll do it. And then, you know, Casey Card from Riverdale say, okay, I'll fly in, although I'm shooting Riverdale right now. I'll give you 4 days of my life to do it. And then everything kind of just, you know, worked out, you know?
Amazing.
So I think that was great. And just also what made it great was it was a very contained, like 19-day shoot, right?
Yeah.
So you see, so we're basically in this cottage auditorium for 19 days with 60 people and with extras and making this crazy hostage drama. And people really came together for it, you know, and above and beyond the money. It was not about the money and the paycheck. It was about just doing something important. And I just loved being picked up in my Airbnb in Manhattan in the morning, going 2 hours upstate, because that was the only cottage that would let us do this very controversial movie in a place called New Rochelle, I think it was called. Yeah, so like, which is like 2 hours drive out of Manhattan, right? And that was the best experience, I think, because it was, and it turned out to be a movie that people really, you know, kind of responded to as well. It's been on some platforms, you know, online platforms. And then when I showed that to my investors in the biggest cinema in Copenhagen that I rented, then it immediately financed my next movie, because they were like, hey, we love the movie, what do you want to do next? And then I got $1 million for my next movie that I then went to do in Malibu, right? The following year, which is something completely different. So, but I think that was the best experience, aside from doing Crime and Justice that we'll get back to. But I think that movie was very, very interesting to do, and everyone came together in the best way.
Wow, that's such an inspiring story. I love to hear that. And then I wonder, how do you come up, like, okay, now it was about guns and how to handle, but how do you come up with these things? Is it just something that appears to you, like also as a private person, where you say like, okay, we have to talk about this, or
yeah, it is. I think it's a combination of wanting to create something that can inspire some sort of change. That's also what I'm hoping to do in Kenya, although, I mean, said in the humblest of ways, I mean, movies and TV doesn't change things by themselves, or maybe they can start some kind of new way of looking at certain things, right? I like to be in places where things should be different, and Denmark is a great safe country, but also a little flat and boring, and not a lot of things. You know, we whine and complain about the stupidest things that are not really big issues. So when you travel the world, you know, and see how people struggle other places, you know, that's inspiring. So I think that's where my ideas come from. But it's a little bit like, I'm a big fan of ABBA, the Swedish band ABBA, who always said, the writers said, there's a common misunderstanding that ideas just come to you, and when you don't feel inspired, then you know nothing happens, and you sit with a blank paper. I think for me, they always said that they always get up in the morning very structured. They sit down with their guitars and sit outside the cave. They use that metaphor, outside the cave, and they wait for the dragon to come out. And sometimes the dragon doesn't come out for weeks.
Yeah.
And then one day the dragon shows his head, it becomes dancing queen, or the winner takes it all, right? And then it was worth sitting there waiting for the dragon. And that's the same as what we're doing, that you structure yourself to create new ideas by being, you know, concerted and being structured, you know, that it's not something that just comes to you. It's like the outcome of a long thought process. And I always do my writing in my head first. So I always write the synopsis, like 5 or 10 pages, and then I hand it over to my writer, who then writes the screenplay, right? Or I sit in the writer's house and we kind of step outline the whole movie together, you know, and then he goes and writes dialogue, because he's American and I'm not, so I would never be able to nail all the idiosyncrasies and the nuances of the language the same way as he does as an American, right?
Yes.
So I think that's my process, I think, you know, and sometimes it just starts with a very strong what if. I mean, what if a college professor who lost her daughter in a shootout chooses to hold her students hostage, you know, with guns, you know, and she has this big surprise for everyone. And then I pitched that for my writers, like, let's write that. And then someone financed it and it became a movie, you know, and it was a nightmare, the process. I mean, a month out of shooting, everything was booked crew-wise. We didn't have any cast. And we're joking with each other, saying maybe we should just do like a stop animation movie with like small kind of characters. It would be this very weird movie. I would have to explain to the investors why there's no actors. Or maybe we got like actors fresh out of, you know, acting academy from New York, which would then mean we wouldn't sell any tickets, right? And then I think 3 weeks out, where we didn't have a single actor, 3 weeks out of principal photography, Elisabeth Marvel said, okay, I'll do it. And then everything opened up, right? Why you can't, people think, sometimes people ask, why don't you cast a year in advance? But you can't, because a year in advance, I mean, a year later, everything can have changed, you know? Actor could be dead, or could be living another side of the globe, or doing another TV show. So you can't be too late and not too soon either. That's what makes casting difficult when you're an independent producer, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, we really learned that the hard way. I remember just walking up and down Manhattan, like really feeling I have to keep this together, because you know, it's $1.5 million of someone else's money that I'm about to blow if I don't find a cast, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I know, but that's also exciting, you know. It's also exciting. You have good colleagues, and I lived in an Airbnb with my writer and my co-producer and my brother, who's an editor. So we're in the same Airbnb in Little Italy. So we're discussing every day, what can we do? Who can we call? Who can we have someone call someone? And we had a casting director, but she was very timid and not the kind of person who would put her foot down saying, this is what we're going to do, right? So I cast the mains. I was the one who negotiated both Daniel Brooks from Orange is the New Black and Elisabeth Marvel, right? And without me, I mean, almost promising them my second born child, they wouldn't, go along with anything, right? It's such a weird business in that way, right? So
yeah, you gotta catch people at some point. Like you gotta make them understand where you're coming from, and that's something. I mean, probably you can also do yourself best, I guess. Yeah. And it's really like, I mean, I did a casting director job lately, and I really was in like so close contact to the filmmaker because I really wanted to understand everything what's going on in his mind, so that when I have actors and that they should commit, that I really know how to convince them, because I know and I believe in it from the heart and the idea. So you have to be in super close contact. I know how it works, but it sounds really exciting and it makes me also feel excited just to listen to it. And I have a side question, and that is, okay, how could, like, one tip of you, how can young filmmakers get investors?
Yes, I mean, what I normally tell them is to do a proof of concept, which is take your script and then do a 4-minute short film version of your movie, right?
Yeah.
So normally what I like to look at as a producer is when young filmmakers come to me for advice is, shoot the most, kind of devastating, emotionally engaging scene of the whole script. Not with the actual actors, forget about that, just any actor, and not final crew maybe even, but do a 4-minute proof of concept. And then show that to investors to prove that you know what you're doing. And you know that the only way a movie works is if you feel it in your gut. Anything you don't feel in your gut is not really a movie, you know what I mean? It's kind of going through it can be entertaining, but it's not, to me, a movie. And as I explained to my son the other day, that why it's called a movie, it's supposed to move you. That's where it comes from. That's why it's called that.
I love it. Yeah, let's break it down. It's true.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is, right? So I think that's what I tell them, and forget about all the production aspect. I mean, people can understand if you didn't have the most fancy camera, but if you get some strong performances and don't produce too much, produce 3 or 4 minutes, and then you send that along with the director's comments on why you want to do the movie, and then the script. I did that for a movie about police brutality, where I did a 4-minute scene. It's a movie about a young homeless man that was beaten to death by police in LA. So I did that moment from the movie where he's beaten to death and everything that leads up to it, why the police were called and how people lied about what he was doing and how the violence escalated and how it was completely unnecessary that it went there. Because that was the hardest scene of the movie. So if I can get that right, then people probably will understand what it is I'm trying to do. That's something that normally works, right?
Yeah.
But also doing keynote presentations. I use Keynote a lot for presentations. So you grab everything from online. This is what I think my character will look like. This is the environment, like a lookbook almost, right?
Yeah.
You try to force yourself to find like the simplest, sharpest way to pitch a story. If you cannot pitch it in a couple of sentences, then it's probably not a good idea. If you have to explain it like for 20 minutes, it's not clear enough. It has to be so clear you can pitch it like in 2 sentences. That's normally the best ideas, and it turns out the best movies. So if you force yourself and structure yourself to do that, and then in the presentation have ideas about what the style is, some references maybe from other movies, some numbers from how other movies in that genre did, also helps, right?
Yeah.
That's what I normally do. And then again, there's no quick fix or easy way to find investors. I mean, it's oftentimes something you culture over a longer period of time. So when I say that some investors jump on board when they watch the movie All the Things We Kill in a cinema, signed 2 weeks later, it's true and it's not true. It's true in the sense that yes, that movie was what made them come on board, but I started cultivating them a year before. A year before I said, I'm gonna do this movie that they then watched a year later and they saw, oh, he actually did it. Now we trust him,
Yes,
so,
definitely.
At the time of meeting the first time, I wanted them to invest in my first movie, like, hey, we don't know you, but come back when you've done this movie, then we'll look at it, So that's also...
it kind of sounds like real trust, like people really trust you. And you build up a network of people that really believe in your work, but you also just gather the results and bring it on, right?
Yeah, never underestimate also the power of sending people regular updates, like here's a shoot, here's a scene with Elisabeth Marvel, kind of pointing a gun at Casey Cott from Riverdale, and you send it to the investor, they go, oh my God, he's actually doing this. It's not just talking to me. That also makes a big difference, definitely.
That is a great, great, great tip. Thank you so much. And I have another question, and that is, what do you think makes a really good actor or a really good actress?
Yeah, I mean, I look for different things. I think it's an interesting question, especially here, because when I came to Kenya, I didn't know anyone 2 years ago. I knew no actors. I didn't even know a casting director. And I knew there was no online place where I could search for them, right?
Yeah.
So I look for is always actors that are well prepared. I mean, and actors that bring in their own interpretation of the part for the audition, right? And they bring something unique and something authentic. That's what I'm looking at auditions. And then when I start working with them, they need to be prepared. They need to know their lines, and they need to be ready for me to kind of then take them to where I want to take them. But I actually like, I see myself as a catalyst. I don't like, I would never play out, like say it like this to an actor. That's not what a good director does.
Yeah.
But I would always kind of, try to find a way to get the best out of the actor, with what that actor comes with or brings to the table, right? So I'm looking for someone who underplays, someone who I always tell, actors to always find the smallest way of saying something big. That's like the best, the note I always give at actors, right?
Yeah.
When you say something big, find a small way of doing it, because it will feel more authentic. I think that's oftentimes the difference between a great performance and a poor performance, is that you always underplay, right? I mean, like that moment before you start to cry, but you can see that you're about to cry, is always more interesting than the actual crying,
Yes. Yeah.
So things like that is something I always work with actors, and interestingly, sometimes actors that are very young delivers that. There's an actor here called Foy Wambui who, comes with an Instagram background, a modeling background, but she came in and did a scene where she's playing the daughter of she's been sexually abused by her father.
Yeah.
The way she starts to cry, there's no fake helping her with anything. She just gets there by herself.
Wow.
And I don't know what goes through her mind, but it's not something I'm telling her. It's something she's doing and bringing to the table herself. So her co-actress in the scene started crying too, and people by the monitor started crying too, because everyone could see this is for real. Yeah, this is a real performance, right? So I mean, I look for actors that are not playing anything, but just being it, and that's always the hard part, that you're not acting anything. So I would sometimes tell people to stop acting. You have to become what you're playing, right? And that's easier said than done, but that's the process that I'm trying to go through with the actors, with the limited time constraints on a TV show or on a movie, right? Where today, 2022, you need to do 4 or 5 minutes of TV show every day, which means 3 or 4 scenes or something like that, right? And depending on how they are, you have the time you have, So I look for people who are well prepared, who underplays, who makes the part their own, and who brings an interpretation to the table that I can then tamper with, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want people who just come and knows their lines and then like, what do you want me to do? I want to see, it has to be filtered through the performer's own personality and own soul by too, right? That the reason why you can make a scene work for you is because you're tapping into something from your life that makes it, kind of, believable, right? I cannot tell you what that is. That's something you have to find in yourself, and then I can guide you when I think it's too much, too small, too big, or not interesting. I mean, Kubrick always, when he was sitting with his editor when he did The Shining, the editor was like, why don't we use take 3? He's like, no, I don't. I think we should use take 68, right? He said, but take 68 is Jack Nicholson is crazy, right? And he said, and then the editor said, take 3, it's much more real, or much more kind of, feels more real. And then Kubrick would say, it's real, but it's not interesting. And I think, the whole it's real is not interesting. No, because from performance, when you look at Heath Ledger in playing the Joker in Batman, the way he makes that part his own, in the most devastating way, and the consequence it had for him is like, that's not real, but it's really interesting to look at,
Yes.
Really interesting to look at. And what is the process that goes into someone to create that? And the same with of course, Joaquin Phoenix when he did his Joker, right? Where I know he went back to his girlfriend and nobody could talk to him, and he stayed in character for the entire 6 weeks. He didn't want to pull out of it. I think that's something you always want as a director, because that's how performance win awards, is by staying in character, although it's super demanding for the actor and devastating for their surroundings, that they're awful to be around and all that, you know,
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
But that's just how you get the great performances, right? You can go to work and just turn it on and turn it off, and you can do something that's run of the mill, something you've seen a million times before, or you can go to work, turn it on if you really know what to tap into, like with Foy. You know, just show your picture of Foy now, you go, she can never get there. And then when you see her character where she fucked up her hair and her costume and no makeup, and she's a completely different character.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for, you know, and also giving the actor the permission to take time to get there, because I will never take
Definitely.
just cry. I mean, that's not how it works. It's like, let the actor go to the other room for 5 minutes, put on your headphones, listen to the music that gets you there, and then she comes back. And then she nods at me when I should roll camera. I don't say camera until she gives me a look saying, now you can go, you know? So that's also something that's important for directors to understand, that the directors are not the stars. You know, the directors is the catalyst. The director is the conductor that makes everyone else look good. And in some way, you know, ends up burning up in the stratosphere as unimportant, but created something that will stay there forever, right? You know, the director is never the star. It's what is put out there.
Yeah.
And how he helps guide his crew and his cast to get there. I think that's how it works for me anyway.
That was wow, that was really mind-blowing. I really see, like, I've seen that in front of me, like how this girl leaves the room and how you just tap into these spaces. You're not so active in a way of like you're active in like sensing, but not so active in really like giving 10 demands or giving 10 whatever. Yeah. Oh, this is amazing. This is really special to hear, Adam, like giving so much space to the actors and really tapping into their field.
That's important. And
also,
also seeing people, you know, it's very important that you tap into this intimacy where actors feel seen by the director, right? And that can be very wordless when it comes down to it. It doesn't have to take a lot of words, you know. It's more like a connection where you just trust each other, you know. And give time to kind of get there, because it takes time. I mean, you cannot plan a scene where you're crying and just give the actor half an hour to get there. It will most likely take 4 hours to get there sometimes, but it's worth it, you know. And it ends up being 2 minutes in the show, but it's 2 minutes people will remember, you know. It's just like why it's worth it, you know.
Wow, that was amazing. I think we're gonna do the final here, the cut here, because it's been an amazing just thing popping out of you. Adam, thank you so much. This was the first podcast about film and acting, and it's been super inspiring. You gave me so much to reflect on, and I am sure that you gave all the rest who's going to listen to it later so much input for their work. So thank you a lot.
You're very welcome. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.